we'll go ahead and jump in. I'm really happy to have the speaker here today. So I met Per pretty recently, just a few weeks ago, actually. And for those that aren't very familiar with me, I'm the program director and work a lot more behind the scenes than the folks you interact with in class and on Slack a lot more. But one of the things that I spend time doing is reviewing other curriculum options. Most of you all are familiar with Pluralsight that we're using right now. We're always evaluating, is that still the right decision or is there something else to look at? And Scrimba is a tool that came across my desk. Actually, several people in CodeU started using it on their own. I think a mentor recommended it to some of the students in the program, just as kind of an additional place to learn. And so that kind of made its way to me, and I looked into it, and Per reached out as well. And we got to talking about the product and what it might be used for in the program, which is a whole other conversation, and things that might change in the future. But it led to us just talking about getting people into the industry and the challenges there. And Per said he loves to give talks on this, and I was like, perfect. We have guest speakers all the time. We'd love to get you in here. So I wanted to introduce you all. So Per Borgen, he's a web developer and CEO and co-founder of Scrimba, which is a code learning platform that has over 1.5 million users. In talking with him, he's passionate about making learning fun and just helping people break into the tech industry. And that's what he's here to talk about today. The term he used when we were talking was going from zero to employed or zero to working. And that's what him, his team, and his platform are all about. And I encourage you to check out Scrimba if you're looking for some other web development areas to kind of add to your skill set. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Per to introduce himself and just kind of take us through his thoughts about getting into the industry. So Per, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I can see here in the chat already that Ivy, Barbara, and Julian has already recommended Scrimba to the crowd. So thank you very much for that. Hugely appreciated. That's how we grow. It's through word of mouth. Okay, so I'm here to talk about how you all can hack the job market to get your foot into the industry and get that ever so important first role. I'll also talk a little bit about Scrimba itself, about our journey, and a little bit about AI as well, as that's relevant these days. So let me actually share my screen. And we've made it so that if you have questions throughout this presentation, you can just type it in the chat. And Brian will keep an eye there out for questions and maybe interrupt and we'll take it there and then, or we'll just save it for later as we have a Q&A afterwards. So you can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. So 10 years ago, I was in the same situation as you all are right now. I was at a coding bootcamp in London, trying to break into the tech industry through learning how to code. And today I want to bring some of the lessons I've learned after that. So I started Scrimba a few years later, and some lessons I've learned through teaching other people how to code and seeing what works in order to get into the industry. I want to talk a little bit about AI and essentially give you these 7 tips on how to get your first developer job in this quite tricky labor market we are in today. So let's just jump into it. So quickly about Scrimba, we are an interactive code learning platform with about 1.5 million registered users, and we are MDN's course partner. And we've also been a part of Y Combinator, the accelerator in California. So we got some really good backers. And it all started when my co-founder tried to teach other people about some technologies he had created, and he realized how poorly regular videos was for teaching people how to code. So he felt, since he felt that it was A, really tricky to teach through, and B, not interactive enough for students, he invented this so-called Scrim format. And I know some of you have seen it already since you said it in the chat, but for those of you who haven't tried it, Scrimba is essentially a code learning platform where all of the kind of lessons look like videos at first sight. So this is a scrim. By the way, you won't hear the audio from the scrim right now since I'm routing it into my AirPods. But if I click play here, you can see that the teacher talks over some slides, and then goes over to the code, the HTML file and the CSS file, and teaches a little bit about various topics. Though the unique thing with Scrimba is that this is not a regular video. It's actually a real code editor. So I can change this. Oh, the width to 30 instead of 300. Oh, that kind of broke that layout. Let's say if I do padding 100. Oh, wow. Yeah, I just messed up this site completely. So when I'm done playing around with this code, perhaps even editing the HTML a little bit and running the code, and I've kind of when I'm done experimenting, I can hit the play button again, and then we're back to the teacher. So it's this interactive experience where you code a lot more than you do compared to, for example, Pluralsight, because we constantly force our students to jump into the code and kind of build upon our projects all the time in our courses. So in 2017, my co-founder and I and our third guy started a company around this technology and launched Scrimba as a kind of an open platform where anyone could create whatever tutorials they wanted. That honestly didn't work very well. For a long time, we struggled until we realized that we actually had to become teachers as well and also record the content, not just build a platform. So we did that. We created a course on CSS Grid and boom, everything changed. This is the user growth after we launched that course. So we doubled down on creating courses until we had topics like React, JavaScript, UI design, and essentially everything we needed in order to offer people a full education experience or a zero to hireable learning path, which we call the front-end developer career path, which we have spent years perfecting at this point. And actually, we started seeing that people who took this, oops, I was not meant to click that link. People who took this course started getting jobs. So Nico here went from bus driver to web developer. We had someone working at a cruise ship becoming a web developer. We had Mailing in the US. We had Wang in Tokyo, and it really worked all over the world. So we were really doing something right. At this point, we were able to partner with MDN, Mozilla Developer Network, because they embraced our learning platform as the best one in the industry that they recommend to their users. And lately, we've also gone into AI, as that is a hugely important topic these days. So about a year ago, we launched the AI Engineer Path, which aims to kind of teach you how to build AI-powered applications. And this is actually, the reason I bring this up is because AI is one of the levers I think junior developers should use today in order to get the necessary attention they need from a potential employer. Because no one are seniors in AI engineering because the field has only existed for a couple of years. So you as a junior, if you just take the time to learn these things, you can really separate yourself from the crowd. The question is, though, what is AI engineering? Well, it is building apps powered by AI. So it's not about training AI models. It's not about using ChatGPT to help you write code. It is just about putting ChatGPT-like features into other products. It's a very fast-growing role these days, and you as web developers are the best suited to become AI engineers. So I can hear some echo in the background here. Perhaps you, Brian, can mute people who haven't muted themselves.
Yep.
And yeah, AI engineering involves topics like prompt engineering, retrieval. That is a super important thing to learn, which is about how to teach the AI or enable the AI to work with proprietary data so that it becomes relevant in any type of situation or company. Because ChatGPT, of course, doesn't know about everything, about your companies or given companies secrets or best practices or policies or whatever. So you all very often have to provide it with information, and that is called retrieval or RAG. Agents, multimodality, fine-tuning, AI safety, the list goes on. There's a bunch of things that sound probably pretty complex when I list them out here right now, but trust me, you as web developers, if you've learned JavaScript, if you've learned React, you will have no problem mastering these subjects as well. And of course, little plug there, we have courses on all of this and a bunch of projects you can build on Scrimba to practice these kinds of topics. Okay, with that, let's move on to the main topic for the talk, which is how can you get your first developer job in this quite tricky labor market. So if we start at the labor market and look at a graph that shows the software development job postings in the US, you can see that we are at the tail end of a pretty massive decline. So in 2020, when COVID hit, and interest rates got to zero, hiring rates just shot up, and it maxed out at the end of 2021, start of 2022, and then it started tapering off as inflation kicked in. There's some layoffs in the tech industry, and interest rates got jacked up because these things, macroeconomic conditions, really they affect the job market. Though actually the situation isn't as bleak as it can look like from this graph, because we're like at a bottom low, 5-year low here. It's actually not that bad, because if we look at the net new employment in the tech industry, you can see that yes, from 2022 to 2023, it was a very small increase of only 100,000 or 117,000 new jobs. But this year, that has actually almost tripled. So there is a lot of new jobs being created in the tech industry. It's just a little bit more competition around them. That's why you're probably finding it hard breaking into the industry. You can see from 2021 to 2022, it was a huge jump. But the jump is pretty significant in 2023, but now there's all of these people in 2022 and 23 who expected to get their jobs. This year, they struggled, and now there's more competition for these 300,000 new jobs. But either way, there's two ways you can break into the tech industry these days as a junior. There's the spray and pray approach, which means applying for hundreds of jobs through, for example, LinkedIn and Indeed. And then there's the other approach, which is called the bullseye approach, which is to target specific companies and then do everything you can in order to get a chance there. These days, I do not recommend the spray and pray approach for juniors because of this competition, because it's so hard. Now, this might change, and the spray and pray might start working better again, as it did in 2021. But for now, focus on the bullseye approach. But with the bullseye approach, you need to separate yourself from the crowd in some way. And that's what I want to talk about now. Because I've seen 7 ways that really work in order to make sure that the company you apply for a job at gives you that extra attention, or gives you, or that you essentially just get an edge over the rest of the application pool. And you should not necessarily just use one of these, but multiple of these. So think about that as I go through this, and also going to do some interactivity and experiments as I talk about these and get some input from the crowd. Okay, so let's dive into them. The first thing I want you to think about is how can you combine your newly acquired coding skills with your already existing professional background. So just to draw an example, we had, for example, Adrian here, who used to work at a hotel in Costa Rica. He worked with the marketing and emails and stuff like that for the hotel. Then he learned how to code. and was able to get a job as an email template developer at TripAdvisor, the public company in the US, which is worth $1 billion or has revenue for $1 billion or something like that. So what he did here is that he used his knowledge about how to sell to tourists, how to market to people who are traveling, in order to nail this job, get this job at TripAdvisor. Now, the reason this works is because companies, they want to hire people, even developers, who already understand their market, and also people who are fast to onboard. So Adrian knew a lot of the technical tools he'd work with from his previous job. And then also he knew how to write HTML and CSS, which is what you do when you do email template development. Now, another way of doing this is actually thinking not just your professional experience, but where do you work today? And are there any opportunities for working technically, aka coding, inside that company? So this is Lacho from, he was from Myanmar, worked in customer service for 6 years, and then learned how to code and was able to get a job as a technical product owner. So my question to all of you is, share some of your professional or volunteer experience in the chat, because I want to see what you all have done in your existing or previous lives. So let's see, I'm going to bring up the chat. 3 new messages. Teacher in Spanish. Interesting. Several of our developers are, or our coding teachers are previous teachers. We have an English teacher, actually. Working in the coax fiber cable industry. Well, that's definitely, I'm not entirely sure what that is, but like if that's telecom related, there's tons of technical work to be done. Translator, code you volunteer at a coming in a lot of homeschool teacher, create branding and packages for wines and spirits. I mean, that is super cool. Marketing is a great avenue. One of the examples I'll bring up later is actually someone who's worked with marketing. I guess this branding and packaging is, I'm not sure if it's exact. Yeah, branding is marketing, but if you have marketing background, you can use that because you know a lot of the tools that developers also need to build integrations with these. Maybe it's HubSpot, or maybe it's Marketo, or maybe it's Salesforce, or whatnot. So yeah, what I see here is that you all have tons of interesting professional experiences that you should utilize in order to get your first developer job. And especially if you have connections, that is also hugely important, and a lever you should use, because you probably know people in the industry who work at companies where there are developer jobs in that industry. Okay, that actually brings me right into the next point here, which is, as a junior, you cannot just apply for the job and sit on your hands. Instead, you need to think that your job is to brute force your way into the company through multiple people, through getting warm intros, through doing repeated outreach, and so forth. The best example here is Steffi, and she is the one I mentioned just now. She was a marketer turned developer. She got ignored 3 times before they interviewed her at the company Adevinta in Spain and finally offered her a job. So she connected with their employees on LinkedIn. She interacted with the company on Instagram. She asked a previous colleague to give a warm referral, and she followed up on email repeatedly. And she ended up getting the job, but she would never have gotten that job had she just done what 99% of job applicants do, which is to send the application and leave it at that. Okay, third thing. Build a dedicated project for your prospective employer. This is perhaps my favorite because it really opens the eyes of the hiring manager and sets you apart from all the other candidates. A good example of this is Andy. I think he's based in Virginia, actually. He is a previous Scrimba student, and he created a website for a local gym before he had an interview at a local web agency. Because by doing this, and here is the actual product, you can see it's not hard. It's just like a basic layout for a gym called Crunch Fitness. But yes, it is just a basic layout, but it shows that he has the business know-how to kind of think about the company's have the company's best interest in mind. So it was like he came to the interview saying, hey, you guys should really approach this gym down the street because they have a really crappy website, and look at how I can make their website much better if you just give me an opportunity. Like that kind of attitude and that kind of motivation that he showed by doing this is really sets you apart. And of course, he got the job. Now, I mentioned earlier that AI is a lever you can use. If you use AI in combination with this technique of building a dedicated project for the employer, I think you'll, I think that is probably the best strategy these days. That's what I would do had I been a junior developer looking for a job these days. We recently had another success story who did this in the Scrimba community, and he applied for a job that did it's a kind of a beverage company that does some that deals a lot with flavors, very specific flavors. So he used this RAG technique, which I mentioned, this retrieval technique, and created a little chat application where their users could type in various tastes of beer, and it would reply like very technical the technical names for those tastes. So if you say, yeah, I'm feeling tasting a little bit of lemon and grass in this beer, then it would reply, yeah, that is probably tetrahydrocarbonate or whatever. So obviously not data that ChatGPT probably knows from beforehand, but something he was able to teach the AI to reason about or to talk about through this RAG technique. And the reason this works so well these days is because almost every company out there is looking at the AI wave these days and thinking, oh, am I about to be disrupted? Or is this train leaving the station without me? How can I utilize this? And if you show them that you can be the person that they can lean into when they need to utilize AI, you can I don't have any numbers, but my guess is you double your chance at getting a role at that company. Okay, let's move to the next one. This tip is about using your technical interests to get your first job. So find an open source library, or actually it doesn't have to be open source, and it doesn't even have to be a library. It can be a tool, but then get deeply involved into its community. We hired one of our developers through this, or we've actually hired everyone at Scrimba through our community. But Mikey, this developer, we hired because we noticed that he was simply helping people out in a community we had created, because we're also the creator of some technology, some open source technologies at Scrimba. So he just dug into this technology and helped people out and shared his project. And we ended up, it felt like a no-brainer to give him a shot. So we did that, and lo and behold, he has been working at us for 2 years now. So what I want you to do is share a technology you enjoy working with in the chat. So it doesn't have to be an open source library. It can be a software. It could be an API, like it could be Airtable. It could be Figma. It could be OpenAI API. It could be AWS. It could be D3.js. Could be React.js, Redux. I mean, I think you all get the point. Just share it, and let's have a little WordPress. Godot. I haven't heard about that even. Blender. Figma. Blender. Okay, so SAP, OpenAI. Yes, this is great. So what I want you all to do, if you are, so first of all, I think it's important that this is a technology you actually enjoy working with, and that you could and you could imagine having a job utilizing that technology, or having that technology be a part of your job. Because then if you have found such an interest, then there's 4 things you should do. Find out where that community exists and where it's most active, whether it's Discord or Slack, a forum, wherever. Join their community and start posting everything you build. Also, perhaps even more, or actually it is even more important, help others when they need help. Because you can bet that there are people in these communities, for example, a Docker in probably a Discord server for Docker or Slack or whatever. And there are people there scouting after Docker experts they want on their team, or just Docker people who need help with Docker. So people are looking for freelancers. You will see opportunities come your way. Maybe it'll be through a secondary contact. You'll just get to know some other Docker experts or OpenAI experts or whatever, and they will introduce you to opportunities. But this is such a great way of getting your foot in the door at a company that uses a specific technology. Okay, 5, kickstart your career with freelancing. If you struggle to get a full-time job, freelancing is a great choice. And there's 2 main ways to do this. One is through gig marketplaces, and the other is through finding your own clients. Now, I recommend the latter here, but let's quickly run through gig marketplaces as well. So we have a success story at Scrimba, who he's an American. He worked at or he started doing gigs at Upwork, which is like a marketplace for freelance work, essentially. He became really good at a very specific niche, coding email templates, and then did 400 plus hours. And then he landed a job at Activision Blizzard, which got acquired by Microsoft. And then he later got a job as an email developer at Amazon. So very humble beginnings can get you far. Though I want to give you a slight warning here. It is hard. The competition is rough on Upwork, so you should really treat that as a job in itself. Like, go through some of these tutorials about how to optimize your LinkedIn profile. No, sorry, your Upwork profile, because otherwise it's just not worth it. You're not going to get any gigs. But if you want to do that, if you want to be a freelancer, if you want to have work from home, if you want to have the freedom a freelancer gets, then this is a good path. Though most likely you'll have more success, or a higher success rate, finding your own clients. There you can tap into your professional network, start sharing on LinkedIn that you are a developer, and tell people that you are looking for work. See if there's any friends or family who has it could be someone who has a local business or works at a company that needs some coding help, or tap into that. You can join communities, like if there are meetup groups in your area, in your country, or county, or city. That's a great avenue. And also one I would like to experiment with a little bit now, because I think it's really fun, which is check out your local businesses and organizations and find someone who could need coding help, and then knock on their doors. Because I can promise you, there are tons of bad websites out there that need fixing. And to prove that to you, I want you all right now to post your location in the chat. So I'm going to go out on a limb here, and we're going to try to find some clients for you all. I'm not sure if we'll make it, but let's see. It'll be fun either how. Okay, so here we take the first one here. Covington, Kentucky. Oh, so many people posting. Oh, Covington, Kentucky. All right, so this is a city in Kentucky. Interesting. Looks like a fairly decent sized city, fairly big city. Bigger than Oslo, at least, which is where I live. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to Google.
Just for some
Covington.
context, Per, Covington is immediately across the river from Cincinnati, which is a major city. But
Right. I've heard about Cincinnati for sure, but I hadn't heard about Covington. But that's good. Okay, so now I Googled Covington barbershop. Let's see what we get here. This is just a random one. Noir barbershop. Let's click into this one. Okay, this website actually looks quite all right. But can anyone notice anything about this website which isn't top notch? No AI. Yeah, good one. Oh yeah, HTTP, not HTTPS. Very well spotted. I didn't see that actually. That's great. So this is a very insecure website. Also, you can bet that this here does not hold up to the contrast. I'm going to do contrast. WSAG contrast checker and see if this contrast is good. Because I also like. Oh, sorry. On another note, I would say it's pretty bad design, like or UI in general, to have 3 different colors on the header, the intro text, and the paragraph. That's just not very good. But let's see. Let's see if we can catch these guys in essentially having an unaccessible website, which in some countries is obliged. You're obliged to have it by law. So let me see. I'm going to color red. I'm going to see. Oops. So now I'm going to use a little trick here. Let's look at this. So the text has a color of this hex code. That is the foreground. And the background is this color right here. Let's hope I don't make a fool out of myself here. Oh, it fails all of the contrast ratio accessibility tests. So people who have bad vision will struggle to read this. So my point now with all of this is also this here is pixelated. Now, this company is not going to be, you're not going to get a full-time coding gig for Noir Barbershop, but you can get your very first portfolio, freelancer gig here by knocking on their door and saying, hey, you know that you have a very insecure website that's probably blocked by some firewalls. You have a contrast ratio that is it doesn't hold up or doesn't oblige to the standards of the industry, and yeah, also this paragraph is far too wide. It's bad UI, and yeah, you can probably find other things as well. And then my point here is, if you knock on this door and tell them about this and say, hey, I can fix it, and maybe they'll pay you for it, maybe they won't, but either way, if they say yes, you will have gotten your very first client and your very first, what you can call, professional work experience, which is pretty cool. Because sometimes, even if you don't get paid, free work really pays off. This is Trevor. He created a website for free for a local nonprofit. And what happened after that was that their accountant approached him because they needed a website and they had other clients that needed websites. And one thing led to another. And he ended up getting gigs, professional or freelancer gigs, working as a developer without having a degree of any kind. So yes, working for free kind of maybe feels a little bit like demotivating, but if you're trying to get into this industry, remember that if you're doing it without a degree, you have to go that extra mile in order to get these opportunities. And a local barbershop plus some free work might be your ticket in. Okay, my final tip is that if you can't get a job as a pure developer, getting a semi-technical role as a, for example, network technician or system technician or quality assurance or sales engineer or any of these like remote coding tangent roles which are related to programming can be a good way in to eventually getting a developer job. And the reason you will have a better chance at getting these semi-technical roles is because oftentimes having or knowing how to code separates you from the crowd when you apply for these as well. So yeah, here's a success story about Eric, who did exactly that after doing our front-end developer career path. So just to sum up, the hacks are: use your background, brute force your way into an interview, build dedicated projects for your employer, consider getting involved in open source communities and helping people out there, start with freelance work, do free work, or perhaps find a semi-technical role so that you can segue your way into coding eventually. If you want to see more stories about all of this, we have a podcast at Scrimba. I can share the link later. And if any of you are interested in Scrimba in using our courses to get more advice like this and learn AI engineering and front end and whatnot, I have with me here today a 70% discount on our Scrimba Pro subscription. So that's our largest discount ever. Works on both monthly or yearly plans. And I would love to connect with you all. Please consider sending me a request on LinkedIn. So I will share both those links now. And with that, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Per, for the conversation and the ideas and everything. I know, some things in there we definitely cover in our program, but it's always fantastic to hear it from another perspective, and others are things we don't cover. And particularly your live demonstrations of just taking, prompts from the chat and everything. We have time for questions. So if you all have some specific questions for Per, please either post them in the chat or really you can just come off mute and ask him directly if you'd like. So anyone have any questions?
Yeah, go ahead. Raising option. This is more specific to your company. I know that you were talking about implementing the AI introduction into your program, and I was also wondering if you all were potentially thinking about exploring cybersecurity as well.
Yeah, we are thinking about it, but we don't yet support backend development. So that makes it a bit harder. We've looked into creating a front-end focused cybersecurity course, but yeah, it's just a little bit of a stretch, though we are getting backend support very soon. So like this month, actually. So after that, that's definitely one of the things we'll look into. But realistically, it'll be a couple of quarters at the earliest until we have it, I think.
All right, that's good to know. Thank you.
It's a little off topic, but I did watch your YouTube video released when Scrimba V2 came out of beta, and you were mentioning how it was much faster, much more optimized. And I was wondering at a high level if you could explain, what exactly you did, or how did you identify these problems, and what technologies did you look into to solve them?
Yeah, so I'll share a link now in the chat, which is to imba.io, which is actually the programming language that we write Scrimba in. That is if their names sound similar, that's because one led to the other. It was imba.io, which is the technology that catalyzed Scrimba back in the day, and it's a programming language that helps you write really fast apps. So it kind of takes care of that, building performant apps for you, like React, for example. But this is much faster than React, actually. So that, and just like continuous optimizations, we spent 4 years building Scrimba 2.0, and my co-founder Sindre is an expert at that. But yeah, my quick tip would be to look into Imba. It compiles to JavaScript, so it can be used both in the browser and with Node.js, alongside all of the Node.js or npm packages you use already.
Oh, awesome. I'm definitely going to check that out.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, which is just the more of like a psychology type question. So particularly I'm thinking about like when you're talking about Upwork and freelance work and stuff like that, like there's certainly a challenge of knowing when you are ready to do this kind of work. Like, you know, imposter syndrome is a common term thrown around of, you know, you have the skills and don't know you do. So is there some advice or anything that you have on recognizing where your skill set lies or where you can apply those skills in a way to start getting that first freelance job or that first exposure, you know, getting over that mental hurdle of actually starting on these recommendations that you have?
Yeah. So, I mean, if the earlier start, the better, essentially. If you have something to build on, previous, if you have a reference from a previous client, it's worth its weight in gold. It very often leads to a new client as well. So I think, but your coding skills kind of decide what kind of roles you can aim for, what kind of freelance gigs you can aim for. So the way I would look at this is, what can you, with your current skills, at least get? Like, you can at least build a website for free for your uncle who runs a repair shop or whatever. That's just a random example. Or you can, for your cousin who sings in a band or whatever. You can at least do something for someone if you try to pull in your network or use your network, and it might be for free. And I think you can do that once you've learned the basics of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and how to deploy a website. Really shouldn't be much. You might not get paid for it, but then next time around you will get paid for it. So I would say you just have to get over imposter syndrome and try to build something for someone, and maybe do it for free, and then do it for $20, and then do it for $200, and then do it for $2,000. Like that. That's how you ramp it up. So yeah, as early as possible is the short answer.
I agree with that. Anyone else has questions for Bear? Sure. No other questions?
Well, I don't really have a question, but I'd like to say that in advance of this, I signed up on Scrimba and checked it out yesterday, and I really enjoyed it. And I really just wanted to point this mostly at you, Brian, and let you know that I thought it was an amazing platform. I really liked it a lot better than anything we've done with Pluralsight or anything else so far. So just wanted to throw that out there.
I second that.
Awesome.
I don't like to act like a fan kid or whatever, but it's been a great experience.
Well, I appreciate the feedback. I can make no promises or anything like that, but you know, we are having internal discussions of like, is Pluralsight the right choice anymore? And we're looking at other alternatives, and Scrimba's on the list. So
amazing. So yeah,
seriously, being able to stop and say, hey, what if we change that to purple, and have it change right away? No, I don't have to switch screens. I don't have to have 3 monitors. It's perfect.
amazing. Thank you. Yeah, please tell your teachers at Code Louisville or where you're about this, and we will. That's how we are able to grow, getting recommendations from students who help us get into schools and learning institutions. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for today. Per, again, thank you so much for joining us. I know everyone here obviously appreciated it, and we'll clean up the recording and get it out to the rest of our students who couldn't make it. And I'm sure, I know for a fact multiple people were asking for the recording, so others will enjoy it as well.
Thank you.
And I look forward to staying in touch with you, and maybe we'll have you back in a year or two or something like that to talk to a new group of students that are coming.
Yes,
in. So.
Totally. Thank you for having me. It was great meeting you all, and I've shared the link to the coupon, the discount. Some people asked if they could use that discount already on their existing subscription. If you have a subscription already, just reach out to me via LinkedIn, which I also shared the link to. Reckon you can paste this into the people who watch this asynchronously, Brian. And then, you can use the link to get that discount. And best of luck, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.